Okay, let's begin again. All right, so today is January the 23rd, Monday. This is Sharonda, and this is my podcast, as well as my YouTube channel, Spiritual Sense. And in this channel, I go over topics in regards to the paranormal, occult, and supernatural. And so I'm not going to go into all of that spread that I just did because I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties with the video presentation, but that is totally fine. But I like to stress that this podcast, as well as this YouTube channel, is for entertainment purposes. Again, this podcast, as well as this YouTube channel, is for entertainment purposes. Okay? So I want to also mention that it is optional. I'm not forcing anybody to partake in the visual, nor listen to the podcast, nor visual presentation. It is optional. It is for entertainment purposes. Again. So it's not a religious nor a biblical podcast. However, I will refer back to the biblical text. It's my own account of my interpretation as to what this life experience has presented to me. Okay, so it's a social discussion. We can agree to disagree, and then it's not nothing to argue about or whatever the case may be. Okay, so today's topic that I'm going to speak on is Valentine's Day. I'm not a person that's against holidays. I'm not. To each his own. I believe people have free will that's within means, as long as you're not harming or injuring yourself and others. I mean, hey, of course you don't just do whatever you want to do because you got free will. No, some things come with common sense, common knowledge. But in terms of celebration of holidays and whatever your belief systems are, I think you have that God-given right to that. Okay, so as I've gotten older in life, I had to grow up really early in life. I think many people in this society had to as well, to where it wasn't you began to see that there's no such thing as, quote, a Santa Claus in a fictitious fantasy like depiction that oftentimes we would see in childhood stories, and a lot of the different things such as the Easter egg bunny and things of that sort, or whatever the case may be. But when you begin to actually go and look up the history in terms of the comings about and what truly was behind the mask, so to speak. I did my podcast back in November or late of October, where I mentioned, I gave my account about Halloween, which just so happened to be a favorite holiday for me. I guess it's not necessarily the holiday itself, but it's just my persona of the mystique and the occultism, and then the weather, and that time of the year is just one of my favorite times of the year. I also spoke about Thanksgiving and what was revealed to me in terms of Thanksgiving and things of the sort. So as mentioned then, I said, okay, when it gets closer to time to speak about Valentine's Day, I would do so. And I'm going to do that now. So Valentine's Day, as we know it, is the 14th day in February, which is just around the corner. It's roughly in another 3 weeks. I am not anti-Thanksgiving, anti-Christmas, anti-holiday, as I mentioned, or even anti-Valentine's Day. This is just my own account about looking up a lot of the information in terms of holidays and things of that sort. So it's also referred to as St. Valentine's Day or Feast of St. Valentine. It's celebrated annually, as I mentioned, February 14th. It originated as a Christian feast day honoring one or two early Christian martyrs named Saint Valentine, and through later folk traditions has become a significant cultural, religious, and commercial celebration of romance and love in many regions of the world. There are a number of martyrdom stories associated with various Valentines connected to February the 14th, including an account of the imprisonment of Saint Valentine of Rome for ministering to Christians persecuted under the Roman Empire in the 3rd century. So, according to this, it mentions that in earlier traditions, Saint Valentine restored sight to the blind daughter of his jailer. Numerous later additions to legend have better related it to the theme of love. An 18th century embellishment to the legend claims he wrote the jailer's daughter a letter signed Your Valentine as a farewell before his execution. Another tradition posits that Saint Valentine performed weddings for Christian soldiers who were forbidden to marry. So it goes on to mention that the 8th century Gelasium Sacramentary recorded the celebration of the Feast of Saint Valentine on February the 14th. The day became associated with romantic love in the 14th and 15th century when notions of courtly love flourished, apparently by association with the lovebirds of early spring. In 18th century England, it grew into an occasion in which couples expressed their love for each other by presenting flowers, offering confectionery, and sending greeting cards. Valentine's Day symbols that are used today include the heart-shaped outline, doves, and the figure of the winged Cupid. Since the 19th century, Valentine's handwritten Valentines have given way to mass-produced greeting cards. In Italy, St. Valentine's keys are given to lovers as a romantic symbol and an invitation to unlock the giver's heart, as well as to children to ward off epilepsy, is what it mentions here. St. Valentine's Day is not a public holiday in any country, although it is an official feast day in the Anglican Communion and the Lutheran Church. Many parts of the Eastern Orthodox Church also celebrate St. Valentine's Day on the 6th of July in honor of Roman Presbyter St. Valentine, and on July the 30th in honor of Hieromartyr Valentine, the Bishop of Inter-Roma. So in the history, it goes a lot in depth in regards to this here. The information that I have read in the past in regards to Valentine's was something totally different from this here, and I'm gonna go a little bit further. It mentions in regards to the legends, J.C. Cooper, the Dictionary of Christianity, writes that Saint Valentine was a priest of Rome who was imprisoned for succoring persecuted Christians. Contemporary records of Saint Valentine's were most probably destroyed during the Diocletianic persecution in the early 4th century. In the 5th or 6th century, a work called Passio Mari et Mate, I guess that's how you would pronounce it, published a story of martyrdom for Saint Valentine of Rome, perhaps by borrowing tortures that happened to other martyrs or saints, as was usual in the literature of that period. So I'm not going to go too much into this because of copyright and plagiarism and things of that sort. But the information that I had read in the past mentioned about Saint Valentine's was due to a martyr who cut his heart out in regards to Valentine's Day, and it was something that it was some occult like demonic representation to this Valentine's Day is what it was. So I'm not able to see any of that information on this website, but I'm going to proceed to looking up that information. So I'm on this website, mentions about what is the true meaning behind Saint Valentine's Day. So the origins of Saint Valentine's, as mentioned, lie in the ancient Roman fertility festival, Lupercalia, which was celebrated on February the 15th. During the festival, young women would place their names in a large urn. The young men would draw a name from the urn and then romantically link with that young woman for the following year. Still, other legends cite the fact that February the 14th marked the date when birds began mating. This here it really doesn't give a lot of the information that I picked up, and that's how you would know that a lot of the information that you read, particularly when you begin to do research and things of this sort, the significance that I found in Valentine's Day, it was more of a demonic dark origin is what I had looked up, and that's the information that I'm going to present now. So I'm on this website that mentions about the dark origins of Valentine's Day. From February 13th to the 15th, the Romans celebrated the feast of the Lupercalia. The men sacrificed a goat and a dog, then whipped women with the hides of the animals they had just slain. The Romans romantics were drunk, they were naked, and according to this here, young women would line up for the men to hit them, and they believed this would make them fertile. The brutal feat included a matchmaking lottery in which young men drew the names of women from a jar. The couple would then be matched together. So what sense does that make? This, to be honest with you, a lot of this right here has no, but they got some drawings here that appears to be of some late times and things of that sort. So how did the holiday spread? How did it evolve? Well, it mentions that Pope Gelasius modeled in the 15th century by combining Saint Valentine's Day with Lupercalia to expel the pagan rituals. But the festival was more of a theoretic interpretation of what it had once been. So it was a little more of a drunken revel, but the Christians put their clothes back on. So this is the account of this person here mentioning about Valentine's Day. But from what I researched in regards to Valentine's Day, there was a representation of, someone who was in a romantic relationship by the name of Valentine or whomever, and he cut his heart out and things of that sort. So a lot of the information that is being depicted on a lot of these websites and perhaps books are not accurate, and you will begin to see that. And so what that means is it's a deception of spirits. That's what I feel. I did a podcast some time ago when I mentioned about a lot of the things I have, as I've been told, is that religion is man. I think holiday is man as well. And I think a lot of it is when it becomes apparent about labor and labor force and the need to produce and do something that is productive in terms of work, how they will use psychology to forefront an agenda as such. And I think the use of holidays is such as that. Is my interpretation of that. Am I against holiday? I mean, some people may want to. There's some people like to feel as though they, they can produce and be productive citizens. I mean, we all want to be productive at contributing to society and doing things that are relevant and that matters. I mean, that's a given without saying. However, I think when it comes to certain works, as I mentioned when I did my Genesis analysis podcast, as well as presentation, when I mentioned about, the story where it mentions about, Cain killing Abel, which was his brother, and then God said to him, Cain, where is thy brother, or something of the sort. He mentioned, am I my brother's keeper, whatever. And from my interpretation of that is, by Cain being the tiller of the ground and his brother Abel being the keeper of the sheep. So I said this was the first account of jealousy, is what I mentioned. Well, I think holidays as such, or holy days, it's such as that. It's a manipulation and by way of psychology to get people to do things that they wouldn't commonly do. And oftentimes when you begin to take things face value and break down the spirit, you'll make a person okay with doing things that are unfavorable by way of religion and by way of what is considered prudent or right. That's why I say you have a lot of superficiality that presents itself in this society. And it's sad to say, because you will see it on a more consistent basis, how people are very superficial and how they judge people and use people to their advantage as such. Call it what you will, call it what you may. Okay? So that's my interpretation of Valentine's Day. That's not to step on anybody's toes or whatever the case may be in terms of Valentine. You can feel how you want to feel about Valentine's Day. I mean, hey, take it as such, or what have you. But that is my interpretation of Valentine's Day. I think it was a way of manipulating the public in terms of production, in terms of works, in terms of things that are going on. They say we have free will and free liberties. However, when works are need to be done on a more community-based level, these certain fables and philosophies are being done as such, so this work can be produced. And I think if we want to think about it in terms of, years ago, I think as it cycles, because I feel as though we are in a new world order, as they would say, meaning a cycling, a renewing, a rejuvenation, which will come in a century, at least twice per century, is what I feel. At least twice per century, where it's a renewing. That means that the upkeep, the update needs to be done. The infrastructure, things are, it's massive. So there's some innovation in infrastructure and technology and things of the sort. And I think by way of religion, by way of holidays and things of that sort, this is how these things are done. Okay? So I am going to conclude this podcast as well as this YouTube channel, Spiritual Sense, speaking about Valentine's Day Explained. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, or a topic for a future show, you're more than welcome to comment in the comment section below. Until then, you have a safe and wonderful day. Good day.